Amy Chambers, welcome to Dominate Your Day. We're so glad to have you here today. I would love for you to explain, for those of you watching us on video, there is like thousands of running bibs behind Amy. So, Amy, tell us a little bit about what are those running bibs about?
Yeah, great. Hi, Dana. So happy to be here. Thanks for
Hi.
having me. I
Yeah.
started running about 10 years ago, and running's really special to me because until I started, I basically couldn't run a mile without gasping for air. I had this belief at that time that I could never run a half marathon. I didn't even really think I could run a 10K. And so when I finally started going out for walks, and then walks turned to slow jogs, and then jogging turned to some light running, I was able to redefine for myself, maybe you could do a 5K. And when I came across that first 3.1 finish line, my mind began to expand. Well, what about a 10K? What about a half? What about a full? And over the course of the last 10 years, I've ran several halves and fulls. And running has really been that way that I've proven to myself that we can do anything we want and we can change things about ourselves as long as we just believe, and then we consistently show up and start putting in the work. And so I think that's why I have them all displayed, is because they remind me of that every day. And then those principles hold true of every aspect of our life.
I love that. I think what's interesting when I look at what you've done, Amy, you've written author of two books. You're three into your own business, out of coming out of corporate. So tell us your story. How did you decide to move out of corporate after
Sure.
21 years? Was it? You got your MBA, all that,
That's right.
and then you decided, okay, I'm going to write some books and I'm going to go hang my shingle up.
I
What
love
happened?
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I went to my performance review in early 2021. I loved my boss, loved the company. And my boss at that time said, maybe in a few years when I retire, you might be a possible candidate to take over the company and maybe become our CEO. And the one thing I really want you to do to get ready for that is to immerse yourself in lending. Lending was the one vertical that I hadn't led in financial services. And so his thought was start going to lending workshops and start spending time with chief lending officers. We need you to really get very, very laser focused on that so you can kind of shore up this potential weakness you have. And I should have gone home feeling so excited and
Mhm.
thrilled. Here I've got a boss, a CEO telling me, hey, I think you might be the person that could possibly take over this company. And I felt kind of flat. And I knew that
Mm.
something was wrong. I shouldn't feel this way. This is what I've worked for my whole 20 years, that maybe I'll be at the helm or the head of this organization. And I feel sort of lackluster about it. And what I realized when I dug in and started asking myself, why is that? Why aren't you more jazzed? I realized, if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow and these would be my last days on earth, would I have any regrets? Would I be
Mhm.
happy with how I played it? And I realized, no, I have this lifelong dream of writing books. I am incredibly passionate about coaching people to success and talking about mindset and choices and plans for the future. And I wasn't as excited about writing board reports and being in compliance or IT steering committee meetings. So I went back and I said, I think I actually want to do something else. I don't think I want to be a CEO of an organization,
Wow.
as great as the pay is and as much of an honor as that is. I think I want to become a coach and a consultant and start my own shop and try to have my own thing. And he was so supportive and just said, well, what are you waiting for then? What is holding you back?
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, it really was to have that level of support and someone actually leaning in and listening. And so within 6 months, I made my transition away from the company. I realized he was right. It was just avoidance of change and a little bit of fear. But I realized I had to go for it. I owed it to myself. And so, yeah, by end of 2021, I had left and began my own practice. And yeah, I think it was just a deep soul searching of saying, if I could do anything and if I wasn't afraid and money wasn't an object and I was, it was all over tomorrow, would I be happy with how I had chosen to live? And because I realized you're missing something here. You haven't really like pursued your dream. I just knew I had to leave. I absolutely had to do it. I owed it to myself.
So looking back now, you took that big jump. What if he hadn't have said that in that
Yeah.
review? Have you thought about that? And you probably something was gnawing inside all this time and you
That's
didn't
right.
know.
It's interesting because I talk to people almost every day that have people in their life that aren't saying that. A lot of my clients have a friend or a family member or a boss that isn't encouraging them to dream bigger, and that is something I think a lot of us have to deal with. One
Mm.
of the things I know that helps with that is when we have a vision statement or a vision board or a list of core values or a mission, and then we guide our lives via that. And so I think it would have been a lot harder, but the way I got to the decision I wanted to make in the first place was going back to my vision statement that I had penned years ago and seeing, hey, you've got best-selling author on here and you haven't done that yet. And you have, changed people's lives, make a difference in the world through your coaching and your leadership and your consulting. And you're doing that at this company, but you're not really doing it out in the world. And you're in conflict. You're not aligned with your own vision statement. So it would have been harder. But I think because of the strength that I would have drawn from my vision statement already having been created and me saying I have to adhere to that because this is what I said was most important, I still would have had the same conversation. But if we don't have a vision or something to anchor ourselves to, I think it's very difficult to move forward. And I think most people actually use that as a reason to not. They would say, yeah, maybe he's right. And I owe it to the company to stay, or I am doing great work here. It's true that it is, very comfortable from a financial standpoint and I feel very safe. Yeah, maybe I better not. I better just stay where I'm at. And so, yeah, I think, great leaders would encourage us to follow our hearts, but not everyone is a great leader. And so it's a funny question you ask, because I think most of us have someone like that in our life that is telling us not to go for it and not to try. And I think that vision statement helps overcome that.
Yeah, and I love that. So the vision statement said, "Write, be an author." So how did you make that happen?
Yeah, well, first of all, the vision statement, the way I think vision statements work best is that they are aspirational. So it's
Mhm.
okay to put things on the vision that you haven't done
Sure.
yet. So I knew when I wrote it back in 2015, 2016, okay, I'm not a published author yet. I'm not a best-selling author, but this is something I've identified I want to do. So I will put it on here. And I think ultimately when I made the decision to leave, I realized, you're so busy at work and you have so much going on. Really, as long as you're working in corporate America, it is very difficult to write this book. It's just hard to find the time for it with the other priorities you have. And you could do it, but then you'd have to sacrifice other things on your vision, like your relationship at home and travel and being a great friend and your running. And so at some point, I decided I do believe that I have to leave if I want to get it done. When I came time to do it, I will say one of the first steps to writing the books and getting them out in the world was talking to people that had already done it. I'm a big believer that anytime we want to do anything and we have no clue how to do it, finding people that have already done it, asking questions, figuring out resources to support us is critical. And so I found a lot of people right away that talked to me about the editing side of it, the formatting side of it, the cover design, the marketing of the book, the production of the book. And I did hire a few people to help me after, interviewing lots of candidates for that. But finding other authors who were able to share kind of their mistakes and use those as learnings was essential. I also talked to a lot of people that really believed in my ability to do it, that said, you're going to be great at that. You love telling stories. This is what you do. You have to get the book out there. People are waiting for it. Lots of people have said, you got to write a book. Please let me know when you do write a book. I can't wait to read it. And so I surrounded myself by a lot of people that gave me that belief that I can do this and I'm going to do this and I must. And so that's really important, finding that network of people to support you, finding those people that encourage you and cheer you on. I think a lot of times we can't kind of find the way forward and stay motivated if we don't have that. So those would be two big pieces of advice if anyone wanting to do anything, is finding the people that have done it and get some cheerleaders.
I love that. And when I look at your strengths, so you've got Clifton strengths, you've got communication, competition. I see that in your running. I can tell your communication, your story, right? You just really easy. And then I think you've got responsibility. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Responsibility. So I'm going to start this book and I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to figure out who's going to help me get it done. But there came the woo, which is winning others over, which it doesn't bother you to go reach out to probably people and ask. And so using that woo it was amazing. And then context, the history. So most people have context, need to know how something was done. And so it sounds like you did a lot of that as you were coming up with the research. Is that right? And then just figuring it out.
Yeah. And I did the first book differently than the second. With the first book, I did what's called author assisted publishing. I found an organization that once I was done with the book, they edited it, they formatted it, they got my Amazon online account set up, gave me a lot of advice and as to how to promote it, how to sell it, how to pick the right categories for it to appear in so that it could get to the top of the charts.
Mhm.
And I loved that experience. But after I saw everything that they did, I said, I really want to try my hand at doing this myself. I saw what they did. And so I
Mhm.
hired my own editor for round two, my second book. I actually had a client who was starting his own publishing business. So one of my own clients, formatted my second book. I actually
Wow.
got my cover designed on Fiverr. And then I put it up on Amazon and I published it myself. And so it was really neat to do it two different ways. For my
Mhm.
third book, I actually am hoping to go through the traditional publishing route and find
Mhm.
someone to publish the book for me and pay me for it and whatnot. But that kind of journey has really evolved because as I've gone through these different processes, I'm seeing what I like, what I don't like, and I'm learning a lot and developing my own beliefs and values as to here's the best way to publish a book under these circumstances. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of what I call PDCA: plan, do, check, and adjust.
I
Test and
love that.
learn, kind of crash and burn sometimes. And I think
Mhm.
that's really important when we think about context and we look back and we want things to make sense. It's looking and saying, I'm willing to see these mistakes or these failures as learning opportunities to grow me and get me stronger so that when I do it the next time, I'm coming in at a higher place. I'm better. Many, many years ago, when I was much younger, I viewed mistakes and failures and stumbles as kind of a sign of something really bad. And I would beat myself up a lot. I was very critical. And so there'd
Mhm.
be things I wouldn't even want to try because I'd be thinking, oh, that didn't go well last time. And that made me feel uncomfortable. And I don't like feeling uncomfortable. And so I've really had to change how I feel about those learning opportunities and that information. And seeing that as like it's good when things aren't working out because look at how it's
Yeah.
going to stretch you and grow you. And so it's a mindset, I think, and that's
Yeah,
something that's evolved.
you've mentioned a lot about mindset, and I am a big believer in that as well. So as you've made this transition, because there's so many people out there right now, Amy, they're thinking, okay, I want to write a book. Oh, I want to start, and they don't even know where to start. And
Yeah,
perfection is keeping them from starting.
yeah,
And even, what is your best advice for them, for those transitioning or wanting to transition?
yep,
It sounds like you had about 6 months to kind of make that transition from the time you told your leader till you left.
yep.
What kinds of advice would you give them?
Yeah, probably it's really simple. Just get started with something small. One of my favorite Martin Luther King quotes is, "Faith is taking the next step, even when you can't see the whole staircase." And you
Mhm,
you said it best.
mhm,
Perfection. It is such a crippling force. I think
mhm,
us wanting to be perfect prevents us from ever trying so many things because we just feel like, well, I can't handle it if I don't do it
mhm,
perfectly or really well. And that's just hogwash. We don't
mhm,
have to feel that way about perfection. We can just get excited
mhm,
about progress. But I think a lot of people say, I've got to have the whole plan and I want to see how the whole thing is going to go down before I get going. And sometimes it's a multiple year process, whatever it is, the thing we're about to try. And so just saying, let me just identify the one or two things that I need to do next. For me,
mhm,
it wasn't about having the answers, but it was like, this week I'm just going to reach out to two people and ask some questions, not make a commitment to hire anyone. I'm just going to try to learn some information. Next week I'm just going to write for 7 hours. It's an hour a day. I'm just going to keep writing and outlining. The week after that I'm just going to do one more thing. I'm going to read a book or buy a book on writing a book on that topic. And so I was just identifying like, what can I just do right now? It's a chunkable, super easy, bite-sized piece, and then that will lead me to the step after that. But I don't have to know what step 59 is. I just need to know what steps 1 and 2 are. And I think that really helps us just get going because once we get going, then momentum starts to take shape and the flywheel effect starts going. We start getting
mhm,
more efficient and effective at what we're doing. But so often we're just afraid to start because it's like, well, I just don't know what's going to happen. What if I'm
mhm.
not successful? What if this fails? What if I spend a lot of money and it wasn't worth it? And it's like don't think about any of that. Just identify one or two small things that you can do this week, and from that, then you'll figure out what next week's items are. And so it
I
really is
s
breaking it down.
Yeah, and I love that, and it's kind of like I'm gonna use the metaphor of running because I too ran just one marathon,
Oh, I
but
love
I'm
it!
like, "Okay."
Congratulations! It's a
I
big
did
deal.
a couple of halves,
Yeah,
but I think what if somebody had told me, "Okay, you're gonna get to the wall and you're gonna be da 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 da," but I didn't you can't look at it, right? The whole
yeah,
run. It's just like, what's gonna happen in this next block, in
yeah.
this next area? And I think it's such a great metaphor for what you probably started doing 10 years ago that prepared you for this, right? The mind of that.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that,
so
is that
true.
what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I for a long time I never wanted to take on the marathon because I did exactly that. What if I get injured either before the
Mhm.
race, like just because I'm training for it and running more, or during the race? And what if, yeah, this magical wall thing kind of comes for me and it's really painful and it's really awful?
Mhm.
Or what if I can't even finish? I like spend all this money, all this time. I go to the race, I have to drop out. I don't even get that medal or that glory. It'll be embarrassing. Like I don't want to have to tell people that I tried and failed. And so I was like, I just better not do it. And at some point, I made this decision that there was something else more important. That the persistence and the finding out and the moving forward, even when I wasn't sure, was more important than the chance that I would fail. And so you have to kind of decide, those things may or may not happen. I might get injured, I may not make it, but I can't control any of that right now. Today, I can only control if I get up and feed my body nutritiously, if I get on that training run, if I find the race that I want to register for, if I go ahead online and sign up. Like I can only, those are the things I can do today. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I can't see the future, and that's why I can't spend too much time thinking about it and worrying about it. I just have to stay in the present and figure out what can I control, what's within my power. And slowly as I did that, and that is, by the way, I think a big part of responsibility is simply like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't like what marketing's doing, or my boss said something that I didn't approve of, but what can my response be? What can I do? And that, I think, is how we take responsibility for ourselves. And slowly when we do that, things do tend to work
Mhm.
out. In the end, I didn't get injured and I was able to finish. And but it started again with just getting up each day and saying, like, what's within my power and my circle of control.
And look at that. Now you did a book and a second book, and now you're working on a third book. So tell us about your book. Tell us about your two books and who they're for and why you wrote them.
Great. Yeah, the first book, some people say the books are out of order. Oh, you should have wrote the book about self leadership first and then dealt with leading others. The reason that the first book was this leadership book, all about leading others, I spent so many darn years in corporate leadership. I saw a lot of bad leadership. And what I began to believe is that leadership changes everything. Having a good leader, being a good leader, it just transforms cultures and teams, and it's make or break. And I became kind of obsessive with leadership, and all of the people I got the wonderful honor and the fortune of leading at some point said, Amy, you have to write a book. You lead so differently, you're going to write a book, right? And so I had that book outlined first, and I felt like I really owed it to all of the people that I'd worked with and for and that worked for me, to deliver this book. And the core or the crux of the book, so Virtues is an acronym, so it's a 7-step framework. Just V is for vision, I is for involve, R is for routines. These are some examples.
Mhm.
Probably my favorite virtue is the I, and it's involve. And I believe that people support what they create. So if you want to be a better leader, it is all about helping other people take ownership and helping other people be great. It's not about you anymore. It's about helping other people deliver and unleash their talents. And so that chapter in particular is all about engaging people, having dialogues, not having all the answers, but asking the questions, issuing out kind of these challenges, and telling people you believe in them. Like, hey, I think you can do this, but not doing it for them. You're no longer the doer. If you're in leadership, you are an
Mhm.
enabler of other people. And so your whole focus has to be about them and what they can do. And that's really the concept in the book. Probably one of my other favorite virtues is E. It stands for encourage energy. It's all about reward and recognition and appreciation. So often I see leaders kind of come with this attitude of like, we pay them and they get benefits and we have a 401k. Like, that's enough. They should be motivated to be here. And it's no, it's so much more than that. People want feedback. They want to know how they are doing. They want to know where they stand. And so really encouraging them to keep going, even when it gets tough and it's hard. That showed up in that virtue a lot. So that's the first book. And the second book, Habits, is all about how do we lead ourselves. Same thing.
Mhm.
Habits is an acronym. Just as examples, H is have honest humility. A is for action. B is for befriend our brains. And so this book is really about figuring out what do I want out of life? Like, what is life about for me? And then how am I going to make that happen? How am I going to look at that ideal life, compare it to my actual state, and go that journey, make that distance, that run in between of what does life look like today, and what do I really want it to look like, and that believership. And it can look different. I can build and create the life for myself that I've dreamed of. It's not just for the celebrities or the rich and famous. Like, I can have anything I want. And so, how do we get there? How do we turn our lives into that? And so, both of these books, a lot of personal experience, virtues, lots of stories about my career and my time in corporate America. And then Habits has a lot to do with, the decision to start the business, the decision to become a runner. And it really walks through a lot of things that happened in childhood where I was much more timid and awkward and always
Mhm.
worrying what people were going to think of me and is everyone okay with me, and then kind of this journey into, like, I don't care if people are okay with me or not.
Mhm.
I got one life to live. It's important. What do I think? And so so that's kind of the two books in a nutshell.
And I love what I'm hearing from you because I think so many times we have things in our childhood that we bring with us into work, into adulthood, patterns like people pleasing and control, all those things, and just learning to. It sounds like you went on a deep journey to really learn about those and then make some transitions.
I
So,
mentioned befriend our brains, and that's something that
mhm,
comes up incredibly intensely and heavily in that chapter. I have seen all this research that suggests that we really get very formed in between childhood and even, by the time we're 6 or age 7, we have all these learned beliefs. We've got childhood programming, and these things most of us carry around with us throughout our entire lives. It takes
mhm,
conscious, intentional, deliberate effort and energy to kind of say, what is it that I believe and where did that come from? And normally it was something that was put there in childhood. And then to say, okay, do I still believe that today? Do I want to believe that?
mhm,
Is that serving me? We learn a lot, I think, from our mothers, our
mhm,
fathers as well, but especially being a woman,
mhm.
so much was taught to me by just what I saw in my mother. It wasn't even like she was saying, this is how we handle it. I just
Mhm.
noticed how she handled it, and I kind of became
Yeah.
that way. And you're right. So great example. I was taught as a kid that you should have a corporate job. Being self-employed is very dangerous. It may
Mhm,
not work out. Being an entrepreneur, it's just like not what you do. And so
mhm,
just choosing to even leave corporate America and start my own thing, both of my parents really, and they're wonderful people. And they mean very well, but they both sort of were like, well, what if that doesn't work out? Like, are you sure?
mhm.
This just seems kind of risky. You have such a good thing going. And I kind of knew that was going to be their response. And so I prepared myself mentally. But to say, hey, I know that those are your guys' beliefs, but I want to try something different. I believe that we can overcome fear with courage now. And I've changed those beliefs. But you are right. Unless we really dig into it, we're not even always aware of what those childhood beliefs are. And some of them can be forms of trauma, and we still
Mhm,
carry them out and act them out. And so, yeah, that kind of ties into the H, that have honest humility. It's really digging into ourselves and learning
mhm,
ourselves and knowing thyself and saying, why do I do what I do? And then having that courage to, if we don't like what we see, to make a change and to start to, like, deprogram those beliefs and actually reprogram and retrain our brain. And that is very hard work because that subconscious mind fights us. It wants us to go
mhm.
back to the way we've done it. And so, yeah, lots of
Yeah.
tips in those habits about how to actually do that. It's very
That's
serious what
awesome.
you're saying.
So what is the next book you have in mind? What are you thinking next?
Oh gosh, there's a few things. One book, and I kind of already mentioned it or alluded to it on this call. I have a book that I'm considering titling "Couldn't Run a Mile," and
Oh.
I want to help people, because this isn't about running. I mean, this is about lots of things in life. Sort of walk people through that journey from, I really didn't believe I could run a mile, and really physically couldn't. I couldn't even get to the end of the block, and that that point in time to who I've become today. I just ran my 245th half marathon on Sunday, getting to
Wow.
my 13th full. Yeah, there was a lot that went on. There was physical training, but really the evolution, the big thing that had to happen was a complete overhaul of
Mhm,
my emotional and mental self. And so couldn't run a mile. I want people to have kind of that story so they can look in their own lives and say, well, what is it that I don't think I can do? And what is it that I'm holding back on? And what is it that I'm afraid of trying? And what if, like Amy, I believe I can't do it, but I really can. And
mhm.
time is just passing. And really, I should get started. And if I just believed in myself, it would be happening. And so that's probably what's going to come next, is that book.
And I think that's awesome. I think it
Okay.
makes sense. I see the passion about it, and the bibs, and I can just see them go. You're going to probably go all over the world and do it,
I
right?
love it.
See, look at
Yeah.
people I know that run marathons now go wherever they can go all over the world, so they can say they did it in Japan or
Yeah.
Hong Kong or wherever. So,
Two great marathons are Madrid. I ran Madrid twice, and like what
oh,
a
there we
cool
go.
experience to be like running by palaces and seeing another
Uh,
culture and part of our world history. I have not gotten into the world majors yet, like Tokyo and London, and now Sydney's been added, and yeah, London. But it's so neat to see so many runners out there completing the world majors and getting their 6 stars. And yeah, I think it is a very common reason to travel. It's I want to
yeah.
see the city, but I also am going to run a marathon while I'm there. So it's neat to kind of kill two birds with one stone. So yeah, you're on to something there for sure.
I love that, Amy. And so, as we get ready to wrap up, what do you think you want to make sure the listeners hear from you? Lessons learned, or some things that you didn't get to share that you want to make sure you share today, whether they pick up your book, Habits or Virtues.
Yeah.
What do you want to make sure that they take away from today? If they're sitting in their corporate office going, "What am I going to do the rest of my life? Am I supposed to be here?" Or they're already quit and they're like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing."
Yeah.
What's your recommendation for them?
Yeah. So for that in particular, and this is probably a recommendation for anybody, I truly believe that our lives take on different trajectories when we say, I am going to schedule every single week 2 hours out of my week is a great place to start of strategy time. I'm going to sit down
Mhm,
and I'm not going to think about today's problems, the tasks, the deadlines, the things in my inbox. I'm going to actually close all that technology down, blank paper and pen, or I'm going to, just empty screen where I can type. But I am going to spend time thinking about who do I want to become tomorrow and what do I want to have in 5 years. And then I'm going to work backwards off of that. I'm going to say, well, what am
mhm,
I doing today or this week to get closer to that? So many of us live life in this reactive place of like, okay, let me get up and where's my phone? Where's my inbox? Who's
mhm,
contacting me? What do they need done? How can I answer them? Instead of starting in this proactive place of, this week I said it was important to spend time with my family or to work towards, yeah, writing that book or training
mhm,
for whatever sporting event it is. Where is that going to go on my calendar? Like, where's it going to live and breathe so that when someone asks me at the last minute, like, hey, can you come into happy hour? Or can you just do this thing at work? You might say yes, but you also might say, no, I actually can't because I've already got kind of a date with myself planned. I
mhm.
needed to do this thing that is important to me, and that's on there, and I can't reschedule or move that. So you start from this position of planning, strength, and power. People that do that, they take that couple of hours a week, they get a few things on their calendar that are about who they want to be in the future. Their
Mhm.
lives especially over a long period of time, look a lot different than those of us that spend no time doing that. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. 2 hours a week, you got to be sitting with yourself, thinking about how you're doing in comparison to what you really want, and maybe drawing that vision board out or figuring out what your core values are, thinking about what are my wildest hopes and goals and dreams, and then what is the one or two things I can get done. If you're not spending time and forcing it to think about it, it's not ever going to happen. So that's probably my biggest piece of advice for your listeners.
That's great, Amy. And you mentioned your leader when you that wanted to promote you, and then you told him you were going to start your own business, and he said, "Okay, you should go do that." It sounds like he's been a great cheerleader. Who else did you have around you as you? And that's something people don't realize because you knew your parents were probably going to be, I don't know about that. So you kind of had to put yourself around that energy
Yep.
of the other people. Or did you go and did you already have a mentor? Did you already have a sponsor?
Yep.
Um, or was that leader kind of all those things for you?
One of my core values is transparency and vulnerability. So I'll just share this. About 10 years ago, when I started running, I was also going through a breakup at the time, and it felt traumatic to me. And I enlisted the help of a therapist, and I have hung on to her for now
Mhm.
almost 10 years. I
Yeah.
know there's a stigma sometimes about therapy or mental health.
Yeah.
She really is just a mentor, an advisor, a coach, and a cheerleader. I see her still to this day every week. Sometimes people are like, "Why do you go? Like, is there a problem in your life?" And it's like, no, and I want there not to be a problem in my life. So I go so there doesn't become a
So
problem.
smart.
Um,
So
she's
smart.
great. Yep. And
That's
I did
cool.
hire a business coach when I started out, spent my
Mhm.
first year with that person, and then realized I had enough to move forward on my own. But I signed a year contract. I found someone that I really believed would help me and who did. It gave me lots of great ideas of how to get my website designed, made some connections for me on those book contacts, helped me design a press kit or a media kit with my offerings. And so, again, kind of figuring out who's someone that's done it before or who just do I feel good talking to? Who
Mhm.
always makes me feel like I can do anything? And really leaning on those people. I have a lot of great girlfriends, but there's two in particular more than the others. And they probably know who they are, and that's okay. But
Mhm.
I go to them when I'm needing kind of like that kick in the pants or
Mhm.
someone to hold me accountable, that are going to say, come on, Amy, like, you know, you can do this and you've done all these things in the past. Like, they're just very positive people. And so I really pick and choose if I'm having a mental struggle, like who I lean on. But yeah, that business coach, my therapist, my former boss and I are still great friends, and I still keep in touch with him. If you find people that say you can do anything and I believe in you, do not let those people go. They come in all different shapes and sizes, but knowing who that clan is, and going to them in those key moments, and not going to the people that you know are going to tell you you can't, that's a very important thing in life. So I'm happy you asked.
I love that, Amy. Oh my gosh, that was such a lot of great wisdom. And I love it because you learned it and now you're sharing it and then you're going out and sharing it with others. So
Love it.
thank you. So tell our audience the best way to reach you and learn more
Great.
about your books. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Amy Chambers, or Amy M Chambers, basically everywhere, on Instagram. Amy M Chambers. My website is amymchambers.com. Coach Amy Chambers on YouTube, on Facebook, just under Amy Chambers on LinkedIn. So very, very easy to find me. I post a weekly video called Transformation Tuesday on YouTube every week. So tune into that, and then lots of updates, quotes, life advice on Instagram at Amy M Chambers. On my website, people can contact me and fill out a contact form. I'll get right back to them. So, or you can get
Okay.
on my calendar that way. So
I
yeah,
love
lots of ways.
that. I love that. Okay. So last thing, what's your favorite quote?
Oh, probably it's a Henry Ford quote. Whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you're right. And I guess I'll choose that because it had so much to do with what we talked
Yeah.
about today. But that's a
That's
good one.
awesome, Amy. That is perfect. That's perfect.
Thank
Okay,
you.
best to you on your next run, wherever that's going to be.
Thank you,
Um, we're so excited for you, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Dana. This was awesome. Really, really enjoyed being here today. You're great.
Great. Thank you.